Okay, we're live on YouTube.
Okay,
Mr. Supervisor, the meeting's yours. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's Monday, March 1st, 2021. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Lyon Township Board of Trustees. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, could you please call roll?
Lisa Blaze,
Present in Lyon Township.
Patricia Carconi,
Here in Lyon Township, Michigan.
Michelle Cash,
Here in Lyon Township,
John Dolan,
Here, Lyon Township.
Christopher Enlow,
Here in Lyon Township.
Sean O'Neill,
Here and in Lyon Township.
Robert Swain.
Present in Lyon Township.
Okay, we're going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Everyone had a
Make
chance to
a-
look through that?
Oh.
Go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Michelle Cash.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. Anyone have any additions or deletions?
Nope,
No.
I'll approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll support.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we'll move on to announcements and communications. Anyone have anything they'd like to announce?
Two quick things. One, I attended the library board meeting last month, and they just asked that I pass along that they were still interested in getting started on their subcommittee, and that if anyone else was interested to let them know.
I volunteered.
I
for
believe,
that.
yeah, I believe it was, Patty and I.
Yeah, but I haven't heard from them, so.
Yep. And the other thing was that I believe also involves Patty. There was the MSU Extension had a webinar last week on codes of conduct and ethics, and I know a couple of people I think said they were going to attend, and I watched that, and I just wanted to bring it up and say that I think it's something we should look into, just establishing. It never hurts to have around.
Okay,
Fantastic. I just wanted to make an announcement again that we will be having a May 4th election for Northville schools. So that will only be our precinct 7. And that will take place at Hardy Elementary School again on Tuesday, May 4th. And it is a millage election for their schools.
okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'd just like to mention that today was the last day to pay your taxes without penalty or interest. And as of tomorrow morning, all delinquent taxes will be turned over to Oakland County. So if you need to pay your taxes to Oakland County, you need to contact our office for the entire month of March to get a revised statement that has to accompany your check to the county. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Hey, Patty, quick question for you.
Yeah.
Did you see more people coming to the counter to pay their taxes, or as many people as normal this year, or was it different with everything going on? Just out of curiosity, how did that go?
No, I think we're actually pretty busy. What I found interesting, Sean, is this is the most people I've seen be delinquent. Like come late between, February 14th actually is the last day, but I think it fell on the weekend. So we had, I think the 16th was the last day to pay your taxes. So you have say the 17th through the 28th, but they gave you till today because again, that the 28th fell on a weekend. And in that short time frame, we saw a lot of people, it's 3% to the township.
Right.
We saw a lot of people being delinquent, a lot.
So they were still paying it, just maybe a couple
That's
weeks
right.
late.
I'll see. We're usually Lyon Township is usually, you'd be really surprised. We're usually around 97% collected.
Yeah.
I mean, we do well here. People do pay their taxes.
Yeah.
And we'll run that report to see what this year is, and I'll let you guys know. And then just a quick tidbit, if it's okay, if you guys don't mind, that Michelle and I and John met with the assessor's office. And, the cost of living was 1.4, so like $1.40 per 1,000 for everybody in the state of Michigan. And our township overall went up 5.5%. We were the second highest, except for I think Holly was more than us. And residential went up, I think it was 2.2. So, with our industrial and our commercial, that got us to 5.5. So we're still leading in Oakland County for appreciation and growth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, we're going to move on to call to the public. This is when the public can talk about non-agenda related items. And if there's anyone out there, please chime in. Rob, could you check it out for us, please?
Yes, it doesn't look like there are any phone callers on the line right now. No one is in the meeting right now.
Okay. Give it just a minute.
Okay, we'll give it just a
Make sure
minute.
that no one comes in.
Okay.
That criteria, Rob, do you have them calling in early?
When the meeting starts, I let in the resident phone callers just a few seconds before we go live. And at this meeting, there were no phone callers at the beginning and still no phone callers.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So we're going to go ahead and close the call to the public and move on to reports. First report is Tina, DDA.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. So good evening, everyone. I have a few items that I wanted to update you on. First of all, at the February Township Board meeting, the board approved our participation in the Oakland County Restaurant Relief Program. And John Dolan has signed the interlocal agreement, and that has been sent over to the county. So if you recall, the initial grant amount allocated to our community was $34,314. Since then, we've been informed that that amount has been increased to $43,016. And that is an increase of around $8,700. This is because some of the communities in Oakland County chose not to participate in the restaurant relief program. And so that additional funding has been reallocated, and we were able to take advantage of that. So the grant money is being used to acquire specific products for winterization and outdoor seating, such as greenhouses, domes or igloos, as people know them, propane heaters, propane tanks, refill program, as well as electrostatic cleaners and sanitation solution, and also some PPE materials. So assembly, delivery, and installation of some of those items is also included in this grant program. And a portion of the grant funding will also be used to reimburse eligible restaurants for some of the costs that they may have already incurred. That window of reimbursement is actually from June 1st of this year through the end of this year. So it's a pretty big window. So I'll be managing the grant program and taking account for all of the details and all of the processing of the grants and the signing of the agreements and all of that. So I can give you the feedback that our business owners, our restaurants are very, very grateful to the township for its commitment to helping them during this incredibly difficult time. And they are just very thankful for your help and participation in this program that's been designed specifically for restaurants. So I wanted to share that feedback. Also wanted to note that the DDA is in need of another board member. The position is an appointment by the township supervisor with support from the township board. Anyone interested in serving can reach out to me to learn more and receive an application to apply. The board does meet on the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. And we do have information on our township website on how to get a hold of me, but you can reach me here at Township Hall at our main number. Also, the Lion Business Task Force that I'm a part of continues to meet weekly to develop promotion and marketing campaigns to help our small business owners through the award-winning Show Your Love for Lion campaign. And we're currently partnering with the Lyon Township Library on a program. It's just a unique way to get our businesses involved. Last month was Love Your Library Month, and this month is Love for Reading Month. And so what we've done is we've invited all of our business owners to participate by simply taking a picture of a book that they're either reading or one that they love or one that has helped them in their business ventures, and then providing a statement and sharing that with the library. And then the library posts on their Facebook and social media pages, and then we go ahead and share that. So it's just a fun way to help the businesses engage in a positive way. We've had so much discussion about the challenges and economic challenges with COVID. So this was a really nice way for us to partner with our libraries and get the folks engaged. Also, I'll be working closely with our chamber over the next few weeks to arrange for some ribbon cutting events for businesses that opened in the past year, but we were unable to host due to COVID restrictions. And I also wanted to let you know that we're seeing a lot more activity and interest on the Walbridge property. We've had a number of site location requests coming in from the county and the state of Michigan with interested companies. So I look forward to sharing hopefully some additional information on that in the near future as those projects are vetted through those organizations. And then lastly, I just wanted to let you know that I do sit on the Lyon Township Kite Festival board, and I'm happy to announce that Leo is moving forward with hosting the 12th annual Kite Festival this year on June 5th and 6th, which is the first weekend in June. We are optimistic and hopeful that the event will take place. We have a commitment from the professional kite flyers who are very anxious and excited to participate. Many of our vendors that we've reached out to, as well as sponsors, are looking to return. And we've cut the sponsorship levels in half this year. Taking into consideration those economic challenges facing our small business owners, we wanted to make it possible for everyone to participate. So we're really excited about that, and I'll be giving updates on that as we move forward. And that concludes my report.
Great, Tina, thank you.
Tina, I have a question. A resident contacted me and asked me when the packet material for the DDA is generally loaded for the upcoming meeting.
It usually is located on the Friday before the meeting. Part of that is that we do have a lot of volunteers participating, and in this past couple of months, especially with the different projects that we've been working on, we just have not had a lot of items on our agenda. And so we haven't had a lot to load into the packet. So if you look back on the agenda, you'll see that's been pretty light. But we typically try to get that loaded at least the Friday before the meeting. If we can, a week in advance, but we do have a lot of committees that tend to meet the week before our meeting. And so we try to include updates on those committees as well.
Is there an agenda available yet?
Not yet. We're still finalizing that agenda. So like an example is the promotions committee. We've been trying to get that committee to meet. We may be able to meet this week. If we can, some of those items will be put onto the agenda for approval. So it really is, it's really difficult to do it anytime. Like we try a week in advance, but it's usually the Friday before the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tina? Okay, we're going to move on. Chief?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening,
Just in the last few weeks, we've hired 5 more paid on calls. We've been getting quite a few applicants, so that's reassuring. We're interviewing a couple more at the end of this week. So after taking a hit at the end of 20, we're getting our numbers back up to where we want to be. As far as COVID testing at Station 2, that has been handed over to a private company and no longer with Oakland County, and they will no longer need our Station 2 on Fridays that we had been offering up the past month or so. And that was pretty much it.
So how many times did they have the how many Fridays did they have that?
You know, it was
a month,
3 or 4. Yeah, it was basically, even by the last one, I think they were less than 10 people signed up for it. So it was dropping almost right from the beginning.
So at one time they were going to turn it over to a vaccination possibly, but
Yeah.
it never materialized or.
Now it's like I said, been handed over now to the private to free up the county employees. They are talking about some large, facilities in the area,
Yeah.
such as Ford Field. And I know today it came out that veterans 50 and over can now qualify for the vaccine. So, but yeah, as far as Lyon Township, I mean, I think we're good for a while.
That's interesting because they haven't, how about the people that are 65 and still haven't gotten contacted? And now they're opening it to 50 for, my sister's 74 and she hasn't been contacted.
Yeah, I just I'm just looking at kind of this email that came out at 2:00 today that the Detroit VA Medical Center. So maybe it's something to do with, I don't know if it's county by county thing. I did see that tomorrow they're going to have a, what is it called? Let me just pull this up, a Savior Spot that is where you can register, I guess, and DPW workers starting tomorrow are now going to be their own category and can get the shot as well. So yeah, as soon as I hear things, I'll pass it on, but
Okay,
that's all I got.
thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Moving on to Lieutenant. Anything going on, Lieutenant?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, decision has been made for the replacement sergeant on afternoon shift in Lyon Township. It's going to be Sergeant Joseph Fortier. He worked in Lyon Township for about 3 or 4 years prior to getting promoted last year. So it's good to have him back home and on noons to lead our afternoon shift and midnight shift. He's a good guy and he has a wealth of knowledge to share with those guys. Let me see here. Also, the county has decided to extend No Shave November again through the month of March. And they're doing a really good thing. We recently had several deputies that were diagnosed with various forms of cancer. So they're taking this money in and we're helping those guys meet their financial needs while they go through this very serious disease. And the last thing I have is the Tryon report was furnished. I just wanted to give the members of the board an opportunity to ask me any questions if they had a chance to review that. So if anyone has any questions for that, I can answer them as best as I can right now. All right, perfect. Well, that's all I have, folks.
Okay, thanks, Lieutenant. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Move on to the Planning Commission. Patty?
We had 2 meetings in the month of February. We had Monday, February 8th. We had no public hearings. We had no old business. Then under the new business, we had the subdivision called Greystone Village, which was the Lion Station, which was the parcel that the Huttos own, that sold it to Rick Elko, that now sold it to Pulte. So they didn't change the plan. Actually, it looks really nice. We had already approved it. So it was the final review and the the planning commission approved that site plan application. Then we went to, I hope I say this right, it's Mohammed Cantina. It's where the old Lion Cantina was, and they brought their site plan to the township. Oh my goodness, this looks so beautiful. The new building and parking in the back. It really was a very nice job, and the planning commission approved that site plan. I think they're using exactly the same building. What would you call it? Put it in the same spot as the old building. So building, whatever you call that. But and then we had the new Hudson Medical Site Plan, which is right there on Lion Center Drive, and they just asked for an extension, a 1-year extension, and we approved that. So then we had Monday, February 22nd, no public hearings, no old business. The new businesses we had was GRLLC East Building Site Plan and the West Building Site Plan. These were properties that Bill Clark presented, and they're on, when you turn in where the Amazon street is, where all the trucks are coming in and out. One side's the east side, one side's the west side. We did approve the east side site plan, and the west side had some, they were in the, what do you call that, Brian?
Wellhead.
Wellhead protection area. So that has to have a public hearing. So that did not get approved. And then our additional business, Brian started talking about the master plan, and we are going to start the process at the planning commission level and utilizing our second meeting of the month. So we realize that our first meeting of the month is probably going to be jam-packed, but the planning commission said that would be okay, and we're going to move forward on that. So, and that was my report. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Patty. Any questions for Patty, planning commission? Okay, we're going to move on to the ZBA. Lise, anything?
We had two cases. One case was regarding some property on Milford Road, and that was tabled until this month. And then we had another case which involved a property located on Research Drive, and they were asking for an architectural design requirement to be waived, and that was approved. This month we have, it appears, that we have, I think, 4 items on our agenda for the March agenda.
Wow, all of a sudden you're getting busy. Thank you, Lise. Any questions for Lise? All right, let's move on to Robert. Park Advisory Board. Robert, anything going on?
We actually had some guests join us. We had some updates from Republic on some details of the landfill, and we had a presentation from the DBAT batting range facility interested in doing some use of fields and trying to bring in some tournament activity that we're going to look to see what we can help them out with. We held our elections and officers switched over, so I'll keep probably giving these reports, but the chair is now Chris Schecker, with the other members stepping up to the vice chair and secretary spots being Lynn and Aaron New. And then we still have our one vacant position that is currently posted if anyone is interested in that. We'll get to one of our project proposals later on the agenda. The only other thing to update on would be that we did resolve a paperwork issue with the DNR. So we are now again eligible for grant funding from them. The deadlines come up real quickly here. It's April 1st. Brian and I spent some time going through if there was anything we could possibly pull together to try and get into this grant cycle. And we had a few thoughts, but it would require a special meeting from this group to end up approving that. So we're kind of leaning towards passing on this grant cycle and just starting and work on a 2022 application unless anybody would like us to try for something right now.
Well, I guess it would matter on what it was. I mean, I'm not sure.
We talked about the trust fund grant that we normally would be dealing with is a little more ambitious. So we looked at it, what is called a recreation passport grant. And we had toyed with the ideas of either submitting an application for some funding for Safety Town or an addition of some playscape features targeting that 5 to 12 age group and handicap accessibility were our two thoughts. So I don't know if anybody here had strong feelings on whether it's worth trying to push to make an application for either of those or not. The park board was, they could go either way on it. So
what is the size of the grant that you're looking for? I mean, what was the options?
That program has a range from, I believe it's 5,000 to 150,000 with a 25% match requirement.
Okay. I don't know, the playground that we have up there now, what is that targeted for? I mean, what is that age?
It's,
Do you think?
it's the whatever to up to 5. I don't remember the low end. Is that?
That's more of a toddler kind of playground? Okay.
Yeah, we lost a lot of the older kid features when we moved the old equipment, well, the remains of the old equipment down from on top of the hill.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have no, I guess it depends on how seriously you guys would take that because, you know, I mean, you have to follow through pretty heavy duty on them grants, I think. I don't think there's a lot of leeway on them. You have to stay on top of them. So I guess the rest of the group can talk. I mean, if you want to have a special meeting because it's coming up quick, I guess
Right,
it's up to this group.
That's where I needed some input here on.
And I know that's what you're looking for. So that's why I'm asking, does anyone have any yes or no's or maybes on that?
Brian, what are we looking at that we need to provide?
The biggest, Robert and I went through the scorecard specifically for, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out, for Safety Town. And I think where we're potentially going to fall short would be some of the details that are required for, you know, they're looking for sustainability, they're looking for ADA accessibility. And while I don't think we have any issues supporting those concepts, I think showing that we have those details worked out for the grant cycle over the next month is going to be difficult. So the way we scored it, we took a pretty realistic view as to what we have available now and what we could get together before the grant is due. And we're right on the borderline, I think, of what was approved for funding during the last grant cycle, maybe just a little bit below. So it's the details that we have to get worked out more than anything.
We're probably really not ready quite yet. So
Yeah.
I think we'd give ourselves a better chance waiting.
Yep.
Okay.
So we need to start looking at ironing those details out and making sure we have something. And or if we are interested in putting in some more play equipment, which would be really nice too, to cover them both, whether it's Safety Town and or Playscape or both. So, okay.
Okay. And
yeah, we should look into that.
Go with that, Robert. We'll just.
Yep, that's fine. I didn't want to pass on the opportunity of free money without giving you guys the option to say go for it. So
No, I appreciate that, really. Anything else?
nope, that's good for me for now.
Okay, thanks, Robert. All right, we're going to move on to the water. And the water, we really have nothing to report tonight. I mean, other than we're still waiting on the return comments from the DEQ or Eagle or whatever. We're waiting on the comments back on the softening pilot. So that's where we're at. We really, everything else is going good. We put a semi-hold on the tank on Griswold because of the bad weather. They're going to start construction back on that here coming up this week. So we'll be hot and heavy on that again. And that's going pretty well. There's they were dropping the electric in there today. So we've got things moving forward, but we're waiting on our softening input from the DEQ. So anybody have any questions about the water? Kind of basically the same as last.
Let me know if I need to, if you need any help on that, dealing with Eagle or anything. I'd be more than
Believe
happy
me,
to-
we have several meetings all the time, and they get to a place where that's just where it's at. And we're getting there. We're getting close. You know, we're thinking if he can get the right approvals, and I noticed that you and he had emailed back and forth, and we're talking probably by the end of the year now is probably a realistic date of turning the first softener on. So, you know, it is what it is, and it's a pretty long process, and this COVID hasn't helped it either. So,
and it's not just us. It's everywhere with dealing with permitting. So
yeah, they're a tough bunch.
Yep.
But we're getting there, and it's real promising. The last few meetings we've had have been really close, so we're getting there.
Great.
And I know it's going to happen too. So just so you know, I know this is all going to come together. When it does, it's going to go quick. Okay, so that concludes our reports for tonight. And we have a public hearing tonight, and it's the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant, which we have every year for 2021. And before we go into the public hearing, if Brian, you want to just explain it a little bit before we open the public hearing?
Sure, I will. Thank you, John. The CDBG block grant, CDBG program is a program through HUD. It's federal funding. Oakland County manages a lot of the program on behalf of its communities. This year, they've recommended that we notice and apply for $22,983 worth of funding. That is the same amount that we received or are going to be receiving when they release the 2020 funds here in the coming weeks. So we're suggesting no changes to the amounts that we allocated last year in terms of providing $3,500 to Haven, which provides services for abused spouses and their children. $3,500 for Southline area youth assistance. So they do things like tutoring and they pay the costs of sports programs, summer camps, those types of things. And then $15,983 is allocated to the senior center. This is to provide partial or entire access fees to the senior center. All three of these have been relatively successful. Obviously, the COVID year has changed things a bit, but Haven continues to provide services. We have a letter from them stating that they were able to help 7 residents with this amount of funding during the last program year. In terms of the senior center, the attendance was obviously cut short once March and April came around last year. I just spoke with them today and they're optimistic. Sounds like they are going to be opening up for tax assistance and they will have some additional programming that they're planning to roll out through the rest of 2020 until they can get bodies back in the center. And then youth services typically provides about 15 residents and children with opportunities that I mentioned, whether it's camps or tutoring or homework assistance, things like that. So not much has changed in the funding in any dramatic way. If you're still on board with utilizing these 3 programs, that can be a recommendation to the county. If you authorize the resolution this evening, I will complete the grant application and submit that by Friday. March 5th is the deadline to submit that to the county. So I guess my last comment would be that this total amount of $22,983 is subject to change based on changes at the federal level. If we have any significant changes or things that will change the allocations that we can distribute to these programs, I will bring those back to you as they come up. With that, I can take any questions or you can open up your public hearing.
Okay, before I open the public hearing, does everyone understand and we can go ahead and move this forward?
Yep.
All right, seeing nobody is needing any questions answered, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. 7:34, and this is where we can have public comment. If anyone comes out there, Rob, could you please let us know?
Yes.
Allow them to come in.
Okay, there are no resident phone callers in the meeting at this point. No resident phone callers.
Okay.
I guess we can give it a minute and
Let's
just
give it a few seconds and make sure
Sure.
there's time if they want to dial in. Nobody dialing in?
no phone callers, no.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead then, and we're going to close the public hearing at 7:35. Okay. We're going to move on. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, community block grant, resolution number. Again, this is the resolution for that block grant. Anyone like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-09 for the community development block grant program for the year 2021.
Support.
Oh, go ahead. Patty supports.
Yes.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're going to move on to the consideration of the ordinance for Lyon Township to amend Chapter 46 Utilities, Water and Sewer Division B, Administration of Permits and Fees, Section 46, Capital Charges for Connection to the Township's Sewer System. Leslie, do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
We'll bring that.
The purpose for this amendment is to reconcile the utility ordinance so that it matches the recently amended contract with Lyon Wastewater. So the proposed ordinance really is the same verbiage that's in that amended contract. The biggest change to the sewer capital charges is that the majority of them are paid prior to pre-construction meeting. The previous version required payment upon submission of the first construction review. So this actually extends when the payment is due for the majority of the cases.
Okay, thank you. Does everyone understand that? Any questions for Leslie?
I did find one thing that I'm wondering about here. If you look at E7, it's going through and saying new non-residential structures on acreage parcels. But the language above kind of mirrors, so like new single-family homes on acreage parcels or within existing subdivisions and condominiums. Should that or within existing be added to 7?
We are mirroring the language that's contained in the agreement.
Okay.
We have an agreement we have to honor.
Okay, if it's pulled from there, that makes sense. It seemed like, what happens if you have a new non-residential structure in an existing site condo, like where does that fall in here?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have a contract we have to live by, so.
Okay.
Any other questions? Motion to be in order?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 3-21, chapter 46 utilities, article 2 water and sewer, division 8, administration of permits and fees, section 46-286, capital charges to amend the schedule for the payment of capital charges for connection to the township sewer system contained in sections 46-286.
Shall would this be first reading?
Yes, it is the first
Okay.
reading. Yep.
I'll support.
We have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on, Meadows of Lyon Plan Development Extension of Approval, AP 2109. Brian, do you want to take this one?
Yes, thank you, John. And we do have Mr. Arkin and Mr. Bennett on the call this evening in case we have any questions or clarifications. The Meadows of Lyon PD is a 35-unit single-family development on the south side of 9 Mile Road and east of Griswold Road. The PD agreement itself governing this PD was executed on March 7th, 2019. And so in keeping with the agreement, the township is permitted to consider an extension of 2 years if we received an extension request within that time. So we had until March 7th, 2021 to consider this. We believe it's appropriate per the PD agreement. Typically, the things that we would consider in terms of an extension of a PD are surrounding changes, impacts that have changed, anything along those lines, roads that are paved. And as I've noted in our letter, I don't see anything that was either not planned during the consideration of this project, or that would impact its development, or that this development would have on another project. So from the planning perspective, we have no concerns whatsoever. I do note in the recommendation that we do find it appropriate that the applicant should describe some of the market demands for the product and reasons for the, I guess, slow start, for lack of a better term, to the project, and when it can be expected to be completed.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I guess we could bring the applicants in, and if there's any, if you have any kind of, you want to explain the situation, would be good, and open it up for questions after that.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all.
Hi,
Seems like
Dwayne.
everyone's
Hi, Dwayne.
healthy and mostly happy, I assume.
Mostly.
Mostly, as well, as much as we can be, I suppose.
Yeah.
And obviously Erwin's here too. So here's the situation, not to sound like a broken record, but of course, most of the development is going on in Lyon Township outside of the 9-mile corridor. And as you all know, and we've still got all of our development cost issues that we've basically had from the beginning. I know we've talked in the past about, you know, we kind of assumed that the woodlands and the meadows would go together. That way they could offset the paving cost of 9-mile road, the half-mile paving for 9-mile. We've got a lot of infrastructure that has to go in. And relative to the meadows, it's mostly just an issue where everybody's developing outside of this corridor right now. We were working on the construction plans, the engineering construction plans for the meadows. We actually did quite a couple of submittals of those, and Leslie can chime in on this if she'd like, of course. And we actually suspended work on the engineering plans primarily because we were running into situations where the earthwork was coming in really, really badly. We were going to have to bring in a tremendous amount of dirt for the meadows to make the high water table and everything work. We suspended work on those engineering plans because it was getting to the point where if we had continued to make developer decisions about how to grade the site, it was almost, wasn't really serving any purpose, because we had gotten to the point where the earthwork was so bad that we thought we should just stop in the hopes of finally getting a builder, because the situation was becoming so extreme that we could have the plans approved, but I would imagine that a builder would go back and potentially want to redo the plans because the earthwork was so bad. So it's essentially the same situation that we've always been in. The paving of 9-mile, every time anybody ever brings up a dollar figure, it just keeps increasing. I think the last one we started all this, it was 1.5. Even with the shutdown and everybody, quote unquote, not being all that busy, the last figure we heard was over 2. Somebody had even said 2.5. So we are just essentially waiting for a developer that wants to come along. And again, we assume that they will want to do the woodlands and the meadows at the same time. So that's pretty much where we stand. There hasn't really been much change. If Erwin wants to add anything, but other than that, we can take your questions and address any comments that you have.
Hey, Dwayne, thank you. Anyone have any questions, or let's open the floor if you have any questions for Dwayne or Erwin.
So the lack of demand isn't so much a lack of demand for housing as a lack of demand from a developer to actually come and build this right now? Yeah,
Robert, we have ours. I won't go into all the details because I don't want to put everybody to sleep. I know you weren't around for all this. We kind of jumped in the very beginning, and we've got the 100-foot lot sizes, with the full side entrance garages, more of what we like to think of as a high-end product. And through various issues that I won't go into unless you really want me to, we got slowed down during the peak of all the development that was going on, we had issues with the gas company and the road commission. And not to sound like I'm playing a tiny violin, but we sat around for a year and a half waiting for people to make decisions that we didn't really have any input on. So essentially, we sort of missed the boat. That size lot, which I'm not to say that it's not a workable product right now. It's just, and again, you guys know this better than anyone, the market has sort of moved away from that type of product. And Irwin has had contact with, we can't even, well, I guess we could tell you, so many potential builder developers. And, you know, it was either, look, we're concentrating on 10 Mile, we're concentrating on 8 Mile. We love your project. We think it's going to be great someday, but this just isn't the time. So that's pretty much where we have been and where we are currently.
Okay.
I would, Dwayne, if I could really quick, you answered kind of one of my questions, which was why for, 8 months or so have you suspended work on the engineering drawings? And your answer makes sense. I guess my concern is that how long do you keep the door open? I mean, this obviously went through the full process over a period of quite some time. And I mean, what you're saying now is you don't have any leads, you don't have anybody on the hook, you don't have final engineering drawings even, so you're, potentially a couple months away from me being able to have that. I mean, I don't know how long a plan should stay alive. If the ordinance prescribes a certain expiration date and you have the ability to, maybe keep it going. I don't know, this doesn't seem like a great situation. I mean, you're not getting ready to break ground like this summer or anything. You're kind of a ways out. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand, Sean. And what I'm gonna, now that I've played Chicken Little, I'm gonna let Irwin chime in here because he has some more information to add that I think will help to address your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Irwin. We can hear you.
Good. Okay. First of all, I haven't seen many of the Lion group for some time. I just hope you're all well and staying safe. So it's been a long haul, and I've got some of the big issues we had to overcome was the fact that the REUs currently were 10,229.35, where ours were close to 30,000 a unit. Currently, the good news we have is that as of February the 10th, we signed an agreement for purchase and sale with Pulte for the Woodlands. And as of today, I spoke with Joe Score of the Woodlands and, of Pulte, and I told him it was only fair to him that he should take advantage of the meadows when the time comes, because the cost of the road is so expensive, and this will hopefully offset it. As of today, I'm happy to tell you that Pulte has signed an agreement for purchase and sale of the meadows also. It's going to take some time. They got to build out 103 units on the woodland side before they get back over to the meadows side. But this is good news. It's finally something going forward.
Okay. Well, it kind of tells you there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So that being said, I mean, I don't see where there's a problem to extend him a couple of years. I mean, it's just my thought.
Well, I don't think, in my whole knowledge that I've been here, I've never seen our board deny an extension request. Especially what could you do through COVID? Any and all developers have lost a whole year. So.
What about a 1 year? What about a 1 year extension?
It may take more than 2 years.
Well, what I'm saying is, and for the record, I didn't vote for this at any point, but I don't deny that it was approved. And would have maybe normally been built, but 2 years is a really long time. 1 year is a really long time. If you've got a purchase agreement and they're moving forward and the engineering's as far along as it seems to be, then there shouldn't be a problem, I would think, to finish the engineering and break ground by this fall. I don't
understand that, Sean. We've sold Crystal Creek how many years ago? And they've never broke ground. They've had a development. I don't know how you do that to a developer I just don't understand that. You're putting them in a hole.
As I was going to say, I think that to see how it goes over this year, and if we're getting close and it seems like you could be, really needing that second year, then we could come back and talk about this a year from now.
Yeah, I will say, Sean, a year, I understand your point. We've been going at this for a long time. The other dilemma that Pulte will have is we've got I refer to it as the bats issue out there. There's the species of bat that because of the trees and everything, the DNR, DEQ, it's not that anymore either. There are restrictions on those pieces of property because those areas are like nesting areas for the bats. And the reason that's important from your timing perspective, because there is a relatively small window when someone could go in there and start removing trees, which of course would be the first, you start mass grade, all the trees have to come down. So if Pulte were ready to start in 2 months, which they won't be because a lot of the permits had expired for the woodlands and they can all be restored. We've had conversations with the road commission and everybody's on board. The issue will be, let's say it takes them 3 months to get their ducks in order and they're ready to start construction. Now they've moved into that period where they're not allowed to go in there and physically clear the trees off the site before they can even start mass grade because the timeframes on tree removal because of the bat species that are supposedly endemic to that area. So a year would be problematic because by the time they get everything regurgitated and ready to go, now that you're into the fall, and like you said, you think normally you'd want to start construction in the fall season, but again, they're going to be squeezed by that restriction about tree removal. So I guess we would ask for 2 years because it may take them 6-7 months to get everything in order, get all their permits in order again. Then they're going to run into the issue where they can't go in and do anything on the site until winter, and they'll be able to work in the winter, but then spring comes around and by then they'll probably have everything cleared, but it's going to take that long. Let alone the paving of 9 Mile. We still have issues. Potentially there are still issues with consumers and the crossing of the hill over that gas pipeline, which you may all recall was a big issue. That's still also going to have to be worked out. I mean, the road commission has put consumers on notice that whatever has to happen is going to be on consumers' dime, but that doesn't mean that consumers isn't going to take 3 or 4 months to do whatever engineering they have to do to lower their pipeline or whatever for the paving of 9 Mile Road and water main crossings and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think a year is going to be enough, I guess, from a practical standpoint.
Going to take Pulte several years to go to build out the 103 lots on the woodland side. So basically, we really need more than the 2 years, let alone 1.
Do we even have an option after an initial 2-year expiration to do any extra time? I don't know, Brian, is that? I'm just saying, like, if it does take more than 2 years, as Mr. Arkin is suggesting it might.
So the language in the agreement, it does not say how many extensions you can have. As a practical matter, the PDs are rezoning processes that that you could likely add an extension to simply by not reverting back to previous zoning and renewing these agreements. So we would have to do some digging and work with Carol on that. But I think from a practical standpoint, we could extend these past the 2 years that the agreement talks about.
Aren't these fairly large lots? In the
Yes.
woodlands, they are.
150.
Yeah, they are in the meadows too, Patty. They're basically the same size lot. They're the 100-foot wide lots.
I mean, these aren't like the little postage stamp lots. I mean,
No, these are estate, well, I call them estate sized lots because they're gonna, and that was the other reason, I mean, they're gonna have to be very nice houses for any, whether it's Pulte or anybody else for that matter. I mean, these aren't gonna be $300,000 houses because even with 103 in the woodlands and 35 in the meadows, even with 138 lots, because of the development costs, it's gonna be a nice house, which is just gonna kind of make it maybe even go a little bit longer for them. But
And Brian, just to clarify, they would just need to, they would need to start construction before the deadline, correct? Okay.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. And I think it comes down to your determination, whether that's shovel in the ground or we've talked about even silt fence up, right? Is when you consider a project started.
Right, they would need to start grading.
yeah, because I think the PD agreement, if the development is commenced within the foregoing 2-year period, which of course now would be the extended, the development shall be deemed to be vested. Now, I'm not going to make a judgment. That's not my job, but I'm sure that Pulte's not going to do this and then sit on it for 1.5 years or 2 years. They've waited a long time to get their hands on it by their choice already. So I'm assuming that once they have everything ready to go, they're going to go.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why a 2-year extension would hurt us at all. I guess,
John, I have some comments when it's,
Go ahead.
I don't know whose
Go
turn it
ahead.
is.
go ahead,
Okay.
Liz, go ahead.
Well, I'm having some issues with the language that we're working with. So this is not the standard that we normally use for any other development asking for an extension. This standard that we're being asked to apply to this request is part of their PD. So it's under their PD agreement, and it says that that it should provide information that the developer is continuing to diligently pursue development, but that market demand does not yet exist for the uses contemplated by this agreement. And I do recognize too that it says that the extension approval shall not be unreasonably withheld, but there is no evidence until tonight. There's nothing in the packet. There is no evidence until tonight where we see that there has been any pursuit of development, let alone diligent pursuit.
Oh, my God.
Tonight, I would like my time to speak.
Sorry.
It seems that this is the opposite of diligence when you have suspended work on your engineering plans. And again, this is not our normal standard that we generally apply to an extension. You're asking us to apply the standard that you have set forth in your PD agreement. So these words of diligently pursue are the words of your agreement, which is what you're asking us to take a look at to provide a 2-year extension, not the normal 1-year extension. And it also says that it uses the word but, the market demand does not yet exist. And even if you did provide us with your diligent pursuit of development, I really don't see how you can say that there isn't a market demand. I mean, Lyon Township is development, and I don't believe that it is unreasonable to ask you to provide more than like just the information that you've provided tonight, that you have attempted to find a developer. Your sentence in your application simply says, let's see, the application states, attempt to find a developer in 9 Mile construction. Well, that doesn't even tell us as much information that I think is necessary to apply this standard that you're asking us for this extension. And I do think it's nice that there's a signed agreement, but you have not yet described the diligent pursuit for development. And so although I normally am agreeable to some extensions, I don't think that you have met the standard that is outlined in your own PD agreement.
Lise, would you mind if I give a little information that really hasn't been covered that thoroughly?
I would love that, because there is no information in the application.
So the engineering reviews, the applicant did submit 3 different engineering reviews, and Dwayne's explanation about the bringing in fill makes sense, because I did review those today after receiving a question about this packet item. The last review we did was in July of 2020, and that review was asking the design engineer for some information related to groundwater, so that we can confirm we're not going to have a basement situation with some pumps pumping. That's something over the past few years we've scrutinized in every development, really since the Stoneley development came forward, and have the issues that are existing there. So we certainly never wanted to see that repeated. So we ask for a lot of detailed information when it goes through engineering review. And Dwayne's explanation on why that stopped makes sense to me, because it is in line with our review. So I just wanted to give you feedback that they did submit 3 times for engineering review.
And I guess when I look at this, they've told you that Pulte has come in and shown an interest that they want to develop this. And they've obviously been pursuing finding somebody to complete this development. So I guess I'm not understanding how the diligently pursued is not being met. Seems to me they've been doing things, but I'm just the attorney. So what can I say?
Well, I mean, I guess my issue is that we've had a letter here from McKenna dated February 17th. And I feel as if that's an appropriate amount of time for the applicant to have at least provided any kind of timeline to explain this, but there's really nothing that was provided in our packet. Now we're finding out tonight that there is a signed agreement, which is good news, but we're also finding out tonight that it's very possible that a 2-year extension won't even satisfy this development. So I'm asking for more information from the applicant to outline what is this diligent pursuit of development, and how is it that the market does not bear an interest in these types of properties?
Well, I know for fact that he's got a lot of SADs on this property, so I can't imagine that he wouldn't have been trying to sell this right on through. These guys have been trying hard. They've been calling, they've been stopping in. I mean, he's been trying to get this property sold for many years that I know of. And I don't know why just an extension of 2 years is a problem. I just don't understand it. I don't understand why we're even worried about it, but that's just me. I mean, it's a 2-year extension. It's not hurting anything. It's not going to change anything. If he gets it sold, that's good for him. He can get going on, and Pulte can take it. And I just don't understand why that's a problem. But
I guess maybe I'm not clarifying my opinion on this very well.
I understand what you're saying.
Extension, but when the standard that has been created as part of their PD agreement was that they needed to show diligence in trying to find a developer, and we get a line in the application that doesn't outline anything at all, that makes it very difficult for me to apply the standard that they're asking the extension for.
Well, I guess you have to consider all the information that's been presented tonight.
But they still haven't really presented a sense of diligence.
And I guess that's your decision to make, but there has been a lot of information presented tonight as to what they've been doing and why an extension is needed. And I guess all I would comment is it's a request for an extension, which is not a request to to reconsider a prior decision, okay? This was a development that was approved and they're asking to extend it. So just, I don't want anybody to factor in whether or not they would have approved this development in the first place in their decision. I want them just to look at whether or not, based on what they've told you, there's a reason to extend it.
I want you to know that we have contacted every builder possible to try and sell this property and try and make something work with this property. We were at a disadvantage with those REUs. We paid all along. So the cost to develop our property was 3 times what the REUs are now. It just was an impossible thing. And as far as I'm concerned, that road construction is to me, is like breaking ground for both parcels. Because meadows can never go forward without the woodlands happening and the road being constructed. But I want you to know, we put one line in that paper, but we have been working so hard. We couldn't compete with 10 Mile. We just couldn't compete. We had to wait for the inventory to be used up somewhat. The property was $30,000 or $40,000 per lot, disadvantage of anything that was on 10 Mile. But I can't tell you how hard we've worked.
Yeah, John, if I could really quick, I guess where I started out with this is, and I think it's worth saying again, I did not vote for this at any point when it got approved, but I think Carol summarized it well. I don't consider tonight to be a rehashing of the site plan, which I didn't support. It's consideration as to whether or not we should give an extension to a plan where the agreement that was approved by a previous board says that we're not to unreasonably withhold an extension. And so to give reasons why I didn't support the site plan and vote no would be, in my mind, unreasonably withholding approval of the extension. So I intend to support an extension. My question simply was, can we do it a year? Can we do it for a year and see where we're going and push this? Because in 2 years' time, if we're still where we're at now, I will vote no, because it'll mean that this thing is probably dead in the water unless something really extenuating happens, because you can't approve a project and keep the door open forever. Some other projects have expired and had to come back through the whole process again and have public hearings again. That's not what we're doing here. We're simply giving an extension. This is just a one and done thing. So I intend to vote to support this, because I think otherwise I would be, in my opinion, unreasonably withholding approval. But I think beyond this, I wouldn't support it beyond 2 years. So it needs to get done if in these next 2 years, in my opinion. And there's no reason it can't be, because there are bats and there's dirt and there's roads and everything else, but everybody else deals with it. So there's no reason that you guys can't get this done in 2 years, as far along as you are at this point.
I think that's a fair comment.
Pulte's due diligence will take up 6 months.
You better help them then. Help them along. Get them your fax some stuff right away, if anyone uses fax anymore.
Well, my concern with this whole thing was that there wasn't any information on what was done diligently. And if Mr. Arkin, is saying what he's saying tonight, that he has something from Pulte, that's great, but we haven't seen it. So I don't feel they met the requirements for a 2-year extension. I mean, this project's been going on forever. The plans that went along with this, they had the 9 Mile road paving approved 5 years ago, and it's been sitting extension after extension. So I don't know how much longer this can go on. I prefer, in all honesty, to table it and get this information that they're saying and show the proof that they were diligently working as what has been verbally communicated, but nothing in writing to us to review. It's hard to make a decision on the fly like this. So at this point, I can't support it until I see, written information on how they were doing this. And I still question the inventory aspect of this. You've got Hutsfield, which yes, is smaller lots, but you have Deer Haven, which are more than 100-foot lots just south of this. You have Haas and Cleaver Farms as well. These are all right next to this parcel. I mean, they're just a little bit west and south on Griswold. I don't see the inventory argument of this at all, but those are my comments. Like I said, if we can get that additional information that shows that you were diligently pursuing options, then I think I could buy into it. But until then, I can't.
My turn to speak.
Go for it.
John and I have met since John's been elected, and I've met with Erwin even before that when Lanny was here. I have seen him with his notebook that is this thick with all the people he's called, tried to sell, marketed it, and I could go on and on and on. And if you think that these people have not tried to sell this property, you're sadly mistaken. Because he's had special assessments and he's one of the few developers that never walked away and stuck the township with money. Did not do it. And I can tell you they've been on our office multiple times. And John can attest to that since he's been here. And I think Michelle has sat in on a few of them, but I know John and I have sat on a lot. So maybe we have a little extra information than the rest of you have. But I can tell you that is the farthest thing. They have been trying so hard to sell this property. And Erwin is right. When you put it to the pencil, and believe me, he is quite the mathematician. And he will show you that in order to get that road paved, they need to sell both parcels. And that's the problem. They are obligated to pave 9 Mile to what they agreed to in both site plans. And that's why he needs the 2-year extension on this parcel. It makes logical sense. These are large lots and people are not building on large lots. It makes total sense to me why this piece hasn't gotten taken up. It's a more expensive project. So if you could buy a house that looks like this and a house that looks like this, and this one's going to cost more, but it's almost the same, you can understand his costs were just higher. And because he met his obligation. And that's one thing that I am admirable about. He didn't walk away. He didn't stick the township with 1 penny. Plus he did the engineering for us for our parcel. So I'm sorry, I have, my heart is much bigger than the rest of you. And I'm sorry, Lisa, that I got a little rude, but I saw this, I lived through these parcels, and I know how hard they worked at it. And you don't realize the money that these people have invested. They have families too. They have bills too. I know that's their job and they choose to be a developer, but you cannot understand what he's brought into our office on a regular basis. He hasn't been in through COVID, but I'm assuming, Erwin, that, I know you're a little older. I hope that's okay to say, because it probably isn't, but I'm sure he always comes to visit us at his office. He's always got some calculations. He's got lists of numbers of developers. It just, I actually just have to say what I have to say, because what Chris, you're saying is not true. And Lisa, it's not true. He can probably give you a whole binder of what he's tried to do and develop this property. And I don't understand it. I've never, and since we've all been here, I've never seen anybody drag somebody through that to prove to us that they can't get if it were your extension. I've never seen anybody say you have to prove to us that you've been trying to sell the property or can't develop it. I've never seen that. And I think it's wrong. I'm sorry. And I have to say that. So I do. I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. Robert, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just to kind of try and go between these things here. One question I have is, since the wording of the agreement is an additional extension for a period of 2 years, do we even have the option to consider a 1-year extension? And then my other question would be, since they submitted the application before the expiration, is that good where if we were to say, let's table this for next month so that we can get some documentation? Because typically we do see things like an actual, like the deeds or whatever kind of agreement to show that something's going on. If we were to table it, would that cause any harm to us being able to still grant the exception?
Well, I can say with respect to the agreement, it would be atypical to produce a proposed purchase agreement under this situation. Okay, I would be surprised if Pulte would say, yeah, it's okay, go ahead and submit this purchase agreement.
Okay.
As to the timing, I mean, clearly it's within your discretion to grant less than the 2 years. But I think, you know, it was set up to allow for the 2 years that they are requesting.
Yeah, and not to jump, I would just note that the language in the PD agreement is the township's language. We didn't draft this agreement. We didn't draft this language in this agreement. This was.
Yeah, but you don't get anywhere there, okay?
Well, I'm
An
just saying.
agreement signed by both sides, so.
Yeah, no, I understand.
wouldn't go there
I'm
with
just
that.
saying, it's like, we weren't the ones that stipulated this language. This was language that was, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but this was boilerplate language and we all agreed to it. So that's why we would like to have the 2 years.
All right, well, Patty, if you want to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve AP-21-09, the Meadows of Lion Plan Development Request for the extension for a 2-year period.
I'll support that.
All right, we have a motion and support. I think we ought to call this one by roll, if we could, Kelly.
Sure. Patricia Carconi,
Yes.
Michelle Cash,
Yes.
Christopher Enlow,
No.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Robert Swain,
No.
Lisa Blades,
No.
John Dolan.
Yes. Okay, so we have, it passes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving on. Resolution, Lyon Township Board authorizing termination portion of sanitary sewer easement for Zot Chrysler. Carol, do you want to talk about that one? I know you wrote the letter there.
I wrote the letter.
All right.
Lisa wrote the letter.
It's
Okay.
Leslie's.
Leslie, why don't you
Leslie,
take
you
this
want
one?
to go after this one?
Sure, I can explain this. There's an existing sanitary sewer easement on the Zot parcel that benefits no other parcel, and it's really in the way of their proposed building. We did note that when it came through the plan review process, so this is really an administrative type item to formally vacate an existing sanitary sewer easement.
Anyone have any questions about that? It's just a easement that is unusable. Okay, would a motion be in order to pass it? Or pass a resolution?
I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-08.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, moving on, resolution 2021-10 to adopt policy relative to review and granting of poverty exemptions by the Township Board of Review. Okay. So how about this? Anybody have any questions about this one? Pretty self-explanatory.
Mhm.
John, I just want to make sure on the agenda, no, maybe that's in the packet. No, I'm sorry. The packet has it mislabeled, but the agenda is correct. It is 2021-10. So I'll make a
Yep.
motion to approve resolution 2021-10.
I'll support. We got out of order because of how things came into the packet. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just started looking at it and I didn't see it
Yep.
earlier and I had to do
Yeah.
a double take. So I
Yep.
just had to double check
Thank you.
real quick.
Okay, do we have a support for that? Did we have one?
Yep, it was me, Michelle Cash.
Okay,
Sean and Michelle.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, moving on to Marjorie Ann Sidewalk Crossing to Pontiac Trail discussion. Your name on that one, Leslie.
Okay, well, I'll try to be brief on this one, but I'd like to reference our letter dated February 18th. I give some background on this project. Several years ago, when we worked on the Safe Routes to School project, which I think most of you are familiar with. It included sidewalks on both sides of Marjorie Ann, as well as crossings of Pontiac Trail as part of that project. Part of the reason why the project was so costly is that we also were proposing a storm sewer, because the sidewalks were going to be located where the existing ditches on Marjorie Ann were. So after this came up with the pathway committee, the interest of having the crossings of Pontiac Trail, I reviewed those plans, and it isn't possible to reuse the Safe Routes to Schools project because the way that that intersection was draining was to the east. So in your packet, if the board is interested in pursuing this extension, we would have to do a bid package and a little design of that intersection. During this time period, Trustee Blades and Enloe have had discussions with the manager of City of South Lyon, and it sounds that they are interested in a cooperative cost-sharing arrangement, and I will defer to Chris or Elise to comment on that. Also in your packet, I included the previous costs based on the bids from 2017 for 2 crossings of Pontiac Trail. And I also have included a map in your packet. So it would be the pedestrian push buttons, the concrete at the southeast corner of Marjorie and Pontiac Trail, as well as the sidewalk on the west side of Pontiac Trail would be the scope of the project. So at this point, I think it makes sense to turn it over to either Chris or Elise to give the background on the communication with the city and for your consideration of this project.
Sure. Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, we met with Paul Zelenak, the city manager at South Lyon, and Councilwoman Dilg over there as well. And we just kind of had open discussions about different areas where we can cost share about sidewalk connections between the township and the city. And this, of course, was number one based on, the demand for it from the Safe Routes to School in the past. So in our conversations with them, and they've talked to city council, and right now verbally the 2 communities are looking at a 50-50 cost sharing on this. They've been made aware that we need a little bit of design change, like Leslie had said. And the overall goal is to try and get this built this construction season, if at all possible. And it seemed like it was pretty open. So luckily we have shared attorneys between the 2 communities. So the intergovernmental agreement, once things, they were to move forward, would be pretty evenly split amongst the communities. And kind of looking forward to it. Want to get some input from the board and see if this is something everybody wants to jump in on.
Do you mind if I comment about the schedule, Chris?
Only if it's good news.
Well, I just want to put out a disclaimer that I'm not sure if it can be constructed this year if the board wants to move forward with this. As I note in the letter, I first looked at this and thought, well, maybe this is possible to add to the Pontiac Trail South water main project, but I really would advise not doing that because it will be a requirement of the road commission that the contractor be MDOT pre-qualified. And there are a lot of really great contractors that would then not be able to bid the water main project. So I would recommend that this be done separately and bid probably once the water main project is under construction, and so that the sidewalk, should you approve this, go in afterwards so we don't disrupt it. A new sidewalk during, water main installation. So I do want to comment on that. I'm not sure if it would be possible to do this year, maybe in the fall, but just wanted to give you that additional information.
So it looks like you got an estimate in here for what, like 60K? Is that what you're thinking it's going to cost? Is that each or is that split?
That's total.
So split 60K, it'd be 30K each.
Yes, but that is based on the 2017 bid tab.
Were those numbers brought into 2020 or 2021 like material adjustments or inflation or anything, or straight up 2017 dollars?
No, it's straight up 2017 actual bid, although we did add a 20% contingency at the bottom of the estimate. I did not go through and update all of the unit prices.
And if I recall, I think those numbers were high for 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
They
But-
were, but again, that was bid through MDOT. So those were MDOT pre-qualified bids. But this gives you an idea of what I would expect the project to cost.
Is there any way to rebid this and bring it back at the next meeting on an actual cost for nowadays money?
I would still just be basing it on recent bid tabs. I mean, I could do that, but I wouldn't be able to bid it without the project documents being updated to get a contractor cost.
And is that what the $6,000 is?
Yes, that would be to develop a bid package for just this project, and we'd have to go in through permitting as well.
I think it'd be great to get this finished. And so Lisa and Chris, thanks for talking to them. And I would support this subject to the city passing a similar resolution before we move ahead and spend any money, just to make sure that, you know, they've taken kind of concurrent action.
I agree with that. I think the city should get on board with this
Sure.
and make some, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like they will. I just want to make sure we have that all together. So if we charge ahead, we know that, you know, it's set.
So who would take this to their board to make sure that this would get approved?
Sounds like maybe Paul Zelenak.
Yeah, I think you could just make a motion, and in that motion, put the condition that it's subject to approval by the South Lyon Council as well. And then you're covered. I know that the city manager has talked to the city attorney about this. So I can check and see if it's been placed on the agenda or when it's going to be placed on the agenda, but I think you could move forward with that condition so that it doesn't have to come back to you.
Sounds
Right.
reasonable.
I'm good with that. Kind of a related point, I guess. I know you're saying, Leslie, that construction at the same time wouldn't be a good idea. Is that separate from, I thought one of the things with the Pontiac Trail water main extension was a section of sidewalk. Is that still a separate thing that we are still looking at?
Yes, that's going to be, as long as we can obtain the easements from the two property owners, that would be bid as part of the Pontiac Trail water main. But we're not crossing any roads with that project. So it's not going to require the contractor be MDOT pre-qualified. It's just flat work. It's pretty simple. The reason the road commission will require MDOT pre-qualification is because there are pedestrian push buttons, which is part of the signal. And I've already reached out to them to confirm that it would be a requirement. And traffic and safety did respond that they would require that contractor to be MDOT pre-qualified because they're working essentially with the signal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem. I think that we've always been one for safety. I mean, we tried to put the sidewalks all the way down and encompass this in the last project, and they backed out on us.
Yes.
So we spent quite a bit of money investment in that last one, and they backed out. The school and the city backed out after they went in full bore. So that's why I'm with Sean. I'd like to know that they're really on board with this, because I was in the last one when they jumped out at the last minute. They were all on board to the last minute.
So are we saying we want them to be on board before Leslie starts the
Oh, we're going to make a motion that says it's contingent on them passing it, or we're not going to spend any money. I mean, that would have to be the motion, or I wouldn't get behind it. If I'm all for safety, and I'd love to have these crossings for them kids. But I think I need them in with their money and not just saying they want in first. I like Sean's idea. So you put that in the motion and I'm all good. Anybody want to carve a motion out like that?
Sure.
I mean, Patty or Michelle, does anybody want to say anything about it, or?
No, I agree with you and Sean about making sure that the city's on board, because we did go that far with the sidewalk last time. And then once they knew the cost, they jumped out.
Yeah, it was expensive, but we were willing to
was.
put the whole bill.
Yep.
Oh,
Well, how about, I can try and carve out a motion. So make a motion to approve a, if not to exceed number of, let's just say, $35,000. Contingent upon the city of South Lyon contributing $35,000 for the engineering and construction of the Marjorie Ann sidewalk crossing of Pontiac Trail.
Support.
Now, I did say 35, so that's 70 total. Leslie's estimate's 60. Does that seem reasonable, or?
I think it is.
I mean, you're 60 plus 6, right, Leslie?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if it exceeds it, it would have to come back to you for any award anyway.
Right, and I would assume that we would also later probably authorize the execution of the interlocal agreement on it, so this would let us move forward to get that agreement in place.
I think that's a good motion, Chris. I think that covers it all.
Okay.
Everyone agree? Okay.
Yeah.
Get a second on that?
Robert Swain, second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that's great. Thank you guys for working on that. Pretty important stuff. Okay, we're gonna move on to the Lyon DDA core sewer installment agreements, this is really a nice project everybody's been getting into. We've had a lot of interest and we have them all in front of you, the people that are ready to sign on the line to get this connection. This is pretty self-explanatory also, but if there's any questions, I mean, these are just all the agreements to attach sewer to the downtown area. The ones that are very super interested. So if there's any questions, I'm sure Leslie or, Carol or anyone's here to answer them.
John, when it gets to the time, or when we get to the point where we're going to move ahead with these, do we need separate motions for every single one? Because I
don't know, Carol.
That's a good question. I think you could do one motion, just reference all the parcel IDs or names. Probably the parcel IDs would be sufficient. Whichever is easiest way for you to do it, Sean.
Well, I don't have I'd have to go through each agreement and extract all that unless somebody else.
The parcel
has it
IDs
ready.
are in one of the
In the
documents.
actual agreements, yeah.
They're actually on the front page. Okay.
You want me to? I can share my screen and you'll be able to see them. If you
Yeah, why don't you do that, Leslie? And you could either do it in one motion or separate motions if you want, but I think one would be sufficient because the parcels or the agreements are basically identical except for the specific amounts for each parcel.
Does someone have a master sheet that has all of the, there it is.
Oh, there it is.
So, I can tell you what is included. The Bonner Rose, which is the parcel that ends in 012, is in this packet. The LaFave parcel ending in 014, the PYM parcel ending in 011, and then the 5627 Grand River Avenue LLC, which ends in 023, are included in this packet. And I expect the other three to follow either next month or in a coming meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, just for the
Leslie,
purpose.
can you highlight those right now? Are you able to do that?
I don't know that one.
Can you maximize your screen?
I have all the parcel numbers.
Okay. Trying to make it easy.
Trying. Or if it's easier, the Bonner Rose parcel.
I mean, I would be willing to make a motion if
Yeah,
there's.
somebody's got them all in front of them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I do.
Got 'em too.
But I mean, does anybody want to talk about it first?
No, I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
They
I'm
want
too.
this, we're helping them, and this is great. So,
And you have no problem with the terms with the 3% in the 10 years?
Sounds fair.
Okay, all right. If you're
Okay.
ready, I'd be willing to make a motion.
Go for it.
Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the 4 installment agreements for the sanitary sewer connection. Those being the parcels 2103 302 012, 2103 303 014, 2103 304 011, and 2103 327 023.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, that's great. Thank you, guys. This is good for us. This is good for the
Absolutely.
downtown. All right, moving on to consideration movies in the park.
All right. So back in 2007, we had a movies in the park program that ran until sometime in 2012, as best I could tell. We had purchased equipment for that and ran it through first volunteers, and then we paid some different people to do the setup and takedown of it. It was basically a inflatable frame that held up a screen and projector and speakers. We going through the survey that we did back in September, a couple of the responses mentioned interest in reviving this program, and we felt that it fit into line with the goals and general areas that people were interested in seeing things expanded for. And so we were looking into ways to get this back up and running. And one of the issues is that the equipment that we had purchased, a lot of it is either missing or damaged. And so we would be looking at having to replace some of that equipment. But looking into the costs of that, we'd be looking at anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, depending upon the size of the screen and the quality of the AV components themselves. So the idea that we came up with to kind of ease ourselves into that is, rather than jump right back in and say we're going to purchase the missing components and go all in on it, to do a one-time pilot event using a rental company that would come in with their equipment, set everything up, operate the entire event for us. We could see how it goes, check if there's any issues, the screen sizes are right, that there's actually enough interest and demand in the community. And then after that, evaluate, depending on if we want to continue it at all. Do we continue with a rental option, or do we repurchase a new system? And so what we're asking for tonight is a not to exceed amount of $2,500 to reestablish that. I'm anticipating it would be closer to $1,500, but it depends upon availability and dates, and there's different blackout periods for certain films, or prices will go up or down. I did have preliminary discussions with 3 different rental companies on this, and they would all fall in those price ranges. In addition to that, we have the costs of the actual movie rental, the licensing to show the film in a public setting. And I threw in there having porta potties for the event, since in the past we used the pavilion that is in the, it's not near one of the bathroom buildings. So assuming we use that location, we'd be looking at the idea also of having this event be a drive-in format. We've seen those being pretty popular lately, and we thought that would possibly increase the comfort level with a lot of people for depending upon where we're at in the pandemic. And it's also, people are doing it successfully while still complying with the current health orders. So even if they get extended, we should still be able to do this. I'll leave it at that as my initial pitch, and see what your guys's questions might be that I can dig further into.
Where did you plan on holding this? Like in our parking lot or up in the park parking lot?
The park parking lot by pavilion number, I want to say it's pavilion number 2. I always get the numbers mixed up.
One in the middle.
Yeah, the one in the middle, yes. So between the hall and the baseball fields.
Okay, and you had said that you planned on having everybody stay in their cars?
Yeah, that would be the
Okay.
idea. So they come in and
Okay.
instead of setting up speakers, they use an FM transmitter. So,
Great. So you put it on your station and you don't have to get out of your car, because last year we had such a bad tick problem.
yes.
So
that-
that'd be another
would be
big
another
deal. You'd
component.
have to consider spraying. Okay. That's my
Our
question.
Vendors did talk about how they had a couple communities do like a, paint giant circles on the lawn 6 feet apart and give people like a spot for where you could set up your blanket. But I was still leaning towards the drive-in myself.
How many cars can we park in that parking lot? Do you know, Robert?
It's about, the way I priced it out was about 50 cars, about 200 people. I have not been able to find any solid information on what our attendance numbers were when we previously ran these.
Sometimes we had as few as maybe 75. Sometimes, if it was not quite as popular of a film, maybe a little bit less than 75. And I think at one time we had maybe about 100 to 125 people attend. But that was with some pretty solid marketing activities, flyers on pizza boxes, flyers to the elementary schools. So I think that helped.
And I think that's a key. I think you're gonna have to market the living heck out of something like that. So I don't know what kind of cost you had in for that, because you would have to do some marketing.
We're actually,
Not
we're
just
limited.
based
The licensing agreements don't let you do certain kinds of like you can't do radio and I want to say newspaper ads, at least not if you're using the title of the film. So it would probably be a lot of social media. I'd be betting on the fact that people have not been able to get out and do anything, and that they'd be jumping at any suggestion of an opportunity for something they can get out and do.
I guess the key thing that I ask, and I ask every time, who's gonna do this? Who's gonna be the people that are gonna be out there? You got 50 cars in a parking lot that small, making sure they're parked in there right, making sure
that-
they get out okay.
That
Who's
is,
gonna volunteer for all these different things that you need to do?
parking is supposed to be covered by their staff as well.
Okay, so going forward, they're going to be running it from now on, or this is just a pilot for this one? And then again, who is going to take over the program? Is it the park board?
That would be part of the question is it successful enough? And then the costs of, do we continue to pay someone else to do it? Do we do volunteers? Like we said, the last time we did this, we started with volunteers, that started to falter, and we ended up having to pay people to do it.
Yeah. So it's free to the residents, correct?
Yes, though the option is there that we could ask for some sort of thing. The way the licensing is priced, there's a fixed amount, and then if you do charge anything, if you go above that by more than 50%, then you start having to give them a piece of that. But if we were to do anything, I would suggest just like some sort of nominal amount per car that we would put towards some sort of donation or something like that.
I like the idea of bringing this back, and I like the idea of renting this. You're saying on the high end, you're getting a $1,200. If we got into a longer term arrangement with them, we could probably do a little bit better. And obviously you're asking for twice that because you're talking about doing some other things beyond just showing the movie, providing bathroom facilities and other things. So I don't think it's unreasonable, but if it's $10,000 in the low end to buy this, and then we've got to store it and we've got to keep it updated. I mean, this stuff, and that's on the cheap end. If it's 20, they're probably bringing the $20,000 projector out to show the movies that we're paying $1,200 for. So to me, I'd be interested in probably just renting. I know you're not asking us to buy anything, but going forward, it seems like it's a lot easier to pay an expert to come and set this thing up so it doesn't have any snags. It goes off without a hitch if it's $1,200 a pop, rather than pay $15,000 for something that'll be obsolete before it'd be paid off at $1,200 a movie. So That was probably more information than you're looking for, but I would support doing this. And I agree with you, Robert, that people probably would love to get out when the weather gets nice and not be in the house, but be able to do something like this and, you know, watch a movie with their family. So good idea.
Yeah, it's
I can't see where $2,500 is going to hurt anybody.
Nope.
It's pretty inexpensive.
it's basically, we've been talking on and off for the last several years of, do we want to bring this back or not? And this seemed like a cost-effective way to find that out of, does it make sense to bring it back or not for a longer haul?
All right, well, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, as long as somebody, comes to the plate and actually takes care of it and actually does their due diligence to, get this thing advertised and, that's going to be the big thing.
Yep.
And I'm really not for charging people. So, you're going to do this. I mean, it's a good for our community. And, my thought was $2,500 is nothing if they use it.
Mhm.
If they don't use it, we're gonna have to get it out of your skin, Robert.
Yep.
All right, well, somebody want to make a motion to go ahead and allow them to go forward with us?
I'll make a motion to approve the not to exceed amount of $2,500 on a pilot event for bringing back the Movies in the Park program, as outlined in the letter dated February 2021.
Or
All right, we have a motion in support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Chris,
opposed?
was that?
Oops, go ahead.
No, I just want to know, did Chris support that?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. What's the first movie?
That I joked with the park board that we would show something like Contagion or
That might
Okay.
not be good.
No, I mean, when you talk about advertising, I mean, we can look at doing, put a poll up on the township Facebook site with a couple suggestions and drive engagement that way, even to say, here's some choices and crowds.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Got some work to do, man. You got to jump on it. Okay. Going to move on to appointing the election commission 2021 through 2024. Wonder who that is.
Well, what happened was, we had our trustee Hicks retire, and trustee Sean Enlow was gracious, or Sean Enlow, I'm sorry. Sean
Wouldn't that be
O'Neill
a scary
was gracious
situation?
enough to join Christopher Enlow and myself as being able to join our election commission. So we just need to do this going forward. They supervise the testing of the equipment and sign off on everything for us. So I was in need, and Sean said yes, he would be willing to do that, and I appreciate that. So we just have to approve resolution 2021-11.
Okay. You make that motion?
Sure, I will make a motion to approve resolution 2021, appointing commissioners for the year 2021 through 2024 elections.
Support.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you have to name who's on there?
It is Chris Enlow and Sean O'Neill,
Okay.
and it is in the
Put that
resolution,
motion.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm, yep.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Well,
All right, cool.
that concludes our business for the night. I'm going to consider this meeting closed. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Meeting adjourned
Aye,
at
good night.
8:49. Bye.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.